Here in lovely Mount Vernon, Illinois at the Midwest LSA Expo, we're having a really special opportunity. We've flown 2 airplanes today. We're going to fly several more, and this is the right place to do it. What we're talking about here is video pilot reports, where we put cameras festooned all over the airplane, and we go up, we talk about things that are recorded, we fly with people that know what they're doing, and they tell us about the airplanes. It's quite a special opportunity. You can do it as well here at the Midwest LSA Expo as at any airport we go to. The runways are big and close. The area is wide open. It's just a great place to do it. We thank everyone, Chris Collins and his whole team here at the Midwest LSA Expo for doing this show. It's really helpful to our needs, and we hope you'll appreciate the video that we've got for you today. I'm standing beside the TL-Ultralight Sirius, this is pronounced. And it may be serious in name, but it's a really fun little airplane. Let's position this airplane though. This might be what we'll call the luxury class of airplanes. These are airplanes that have higher price tags, no question about it, but are supremely well equipped, as the video will show. Panel full of instrumentations, lots of nice features. So this comes from, is imported from the Czech Republic by SportairUSA, which is run by Bill Canino, and he's got quite an operation of importing airplanes. He has worked with TL-Ultralights out of the Czech Republic for many years and has given them lots of feedback about the airplane. So this particular one, which has only 20 hours on it, as of the time we went to fly it, has changes from the earlier one we flew a few years ago. And it's just nicer in every way. It's a very comfortable, nice flying airplane, an all carbon fiber design, although as you can see behind me here, it does use struts. So there's not a great big spar running across the cabin as there are in some others that are cantilevered, meaning no struts. The Sirius is part of a family of airplanes that includes the Sting, which is the low wing, also all carbon fiber bubble canopy aircraft. Also a very nice flying airplane, but you know, in aviation people are either high wing or low wing. It's one way to separate what kind of airplane you might like. If you like low-wing airplanes, they've got the Sting, also from the same company, TL-Ultralight. This is the high-wing version, and they've done it very nicely. After you button up the cowl on this airplane, which happens pretty quickly, top and bottom can come off for great access. You're looking at the engine inside here, which is the Rotax 912. This one has the ULS, the carbureted version. They can also supply to you the injected version, the 912IS. Walking around the airplane here in front of the camera, we come up to the Hélice. This is a French design called the duck prop. And you notice it's quite a slender construction, which apparently makes it somewhat quieter, I believe. But it seems to work really well, despite not having the thickness that some blades have. Steerable nose wheel down here. And more than a steerable nose wheel on this airplane, you've also got directional control, that is differential braking, right-left brakes, in addition to steerable nose wheel. And the rudder pedals adjust inside. We'll see that in a minute. But coming on around to the rest of the airplane, composite gear legs, and the airplane can fly so slowly. Let's do that in reverse. First of all, it can fly. I saw about 126 knots true airspeed. Indicated was 111 or some number like that. So it scoots right along, and that was at about 5,300 RPM. So this airplane, clearly very slick. There'll be other indications of that in just a moment. But the stall is what really surprised me. I knew it was going to go pretty fast because it's sleek and smooth. What surprised me was how slow it went in stall. I was calling out the numbers as Bill demonstrated stall for me so that I could watch with the camera and see the numbers myself without having to pay attention to the airplane. And I saw the numbers come all the way down to 32 knots indicated this is. And at those angles of attack, you do get some error, but still it's very, very slow. And then the numbers just went away completely because the angle was so high I can't even record a number anymore. And at that, the airplane was really quite stable in its stalled attitude. And to recover, Bill's technique is just add power. Don't even lower the nose. There's no need to, unless of course you didn't have power, and even then you'd lower it just a little bit because it slips through the air. The other indication we got beside the low stall was when we came in for landing. Bill's technique, as he teaches it in the pattern, is power all the way back on downwind. Now that's a technique for accuracy landings as instructors teach students. The idea being to see if you can manage the energy in the airplane and land within a certain distance on the ground. It's a good skill to bring up. In this airplane you're going to have to work at it a little harder, but not because it gets to the ground quickly, but because it gets there so slowly. It slips through the air so well and stalls so slowly that you can maintain energy in on landing without needing any extra power. In fact, if you add power, you're just going to go all the way down the runway. Not uncommon with these airplanes from Europe. Well, we come inside the Sirius TL3000 from TL-Ultralights, sold in the USA by SportairUSA. There's a lot to be said about the interior of this airplane. But first of all, let's look at the seats in here. They're very nicely upholstered. They're very comfortable. They're cloth seats. I don't know if they have a leather option or not, but these are very comfortable to sit in. There's no question about it. These side bolsters that you see here and here really kind of hold you nicely in the seat. I'm sitting a little crooked now, but when I'm in it, it holds you in position quite nicely. That's very nice. And another little trick feature here is there's got a center console here, and they've got stuff in it, so I can't reach down, but it goes way down, like to the floor, so several inches down, you can hold quite a bit of stuff there, right in flight and handy. In the baggage area behind us here, I'm told it's 75 pounds of capacity, and quite a few bags can go back there. Now, one thing I didn't notice, so I don't want to be a disservice to them, but I don't believe there's a door back there. And so therefore loading things back there is going to be a little more challenging because you got to get it in the airplane. The good news is, I'll just pull it a little bit here. You'll hear the Velcro release, and then because this has recoil belts on it, you can just lean the whole thing all the way down and lay it flat there. So that makes getting back there much easier than if this didn't do that. I can see it'd be a little more challenging to get stuff back there, but man, it does hold a lot. I got to give it that. So we'll put this back here in position just so it looks right and proper again. As I said, the seats are very comfortable, but they don't adjust fore and aft. Now, there's a way they compensate for different body sizes, and typical bodies are longer legs, shorter torsos, or however that gets distributed is different by every human. So the exact configuration is still to be decided here. But you can see the camera down on this side better. I'm going to put my hand behind a knob here, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it, and you'll hear a click. That click that you just heard releases a friction lock, and then with a substantial pull, you just pull those rudder pedals forward, or they're not going to go back now because I would have to push them with my feet, but you just push them back the other way. But as long as I've got them in nice and close, let me reach down here and just show you with my hand. There's the brake hoop, and of course the rudder pedal is just like you expect, but so differential brakes, and this whole system is duplicated on both sides. So both sides have nose wheel steering, of course, and differential braking. That allows you a lot of ramp maneuverability, and you can do that. I did it, in fact, in flight. Adjust the rudder pedals in flight. No problem at all. Easy to reach down there and easy to do that.
Well, the one thing that I could see with a problem with that, Dan, would if you were short-armed, how do you reach those yokes? Are the yokes adjustable?
Well, that's a good point, Dave. And so let me get all the way in position here. I've got the rudder pedals. That all part is very comfortable. By the way, one other thing I'll say about the rudder pedals, in flight, you notice where my legs are here, they're not on the seat cushion. There's several inches of room there. That means that's going to introduce fatigue over a long time. So for a long flight, what you do is you pull that handle, get the click, and then just push the rudder pedals all the way back in. Well, you don't need the rudder pedals the same way in cruise as you do when you're landing. So now I've got my legs fully extended. My legs are down on the seat cushion now, which has this bolster here, and that's a lot more comfortable, so less fatigue. However, the normal position of the yoke is about, well, let me look back at the tail to just be fair here. There, that's neutral position. For me, as you can see, with the seat where it is, because it doesn't move, that's pretty much arm's length. Now, for a long enough flight, this has Autopilot on board, so you could just flip the Autopilot, and you don't have to hang on to that at all. By the way, you saw it drop back in there. That's just when it's on the ground. With air loads passing by the tail, it'll stay in position right about there. It's a little long for me. I commented on that to Bill. And the answer then is to either A, add seat cushions to the back here of these very nice seats, or in the case of an owner, this is a luxury aircraft, and they would build the seat somewhat differently with additional padding in it for that buyer. That's very nice. It's customized, but now what if a smaller or a bigger person gets in and doesn't want all that cushion there? So I guess I would rather have both adjustable rudder pedals and adjustable seats, but I appreciate that any design has decisions, and this is the one they made. Now, the seat cushions they have, I happen to be sitting on one that boosted me up a little bit, and so now I'm sitting down a little lower, which would give me even more headroom. And the seat cushion's done very nicely too, and fits in there nice. So they know how to execute this thing. It wouldn't look kludgy, but to have a seat cushion in the back so that I'm really about here, which is where I'd like to be, that would be best. Now let me show you one other thing too then. The doors, which are very nice, and by the way, you're going to hear me slam it. That's not what you often do on these light sport aircraft, but you slam. That latches, it's latched now. But then there's a red handle here, which you swing up all the way forward, and all that does is put out a little pin on the front and back, and then you check it in flight to make sure that door is now fully secured. So now I'm going back to this position here again. Here's the trouble for me. This is not quite the right height for me. If it was up there, I could be flying this like this, no problem. Because it's down a little bit lower, I think I'd see some fatigue in the aircraft over a period of time. Again, because it's got autopilot and every instrument you could want, that's not going to be that much of a factor. But in any airplane, there are things that may not satisfy every individual. For me, I'd rather have the armrest up just a little bit higher, and that would be not a hard thing to do. I suppose the compensating factor is that means you got kind of less elbow room then, because then that would get in your way. This is Bill didn't have the number on the width of the cabin. It was certainly comfortable for he and I, but he and I are maybe got a couple of pounds more than we should have, but we're certainly not great big Americans. And we fit very comfortably in here, but a couple of real big guys might feel a little constrained. It's not quite as large as the largest of the light sport aircraft. So let's put the air conditioning on. We'll let the door float out, which it does very nicely. There's pistons on both ends of the door. Most of them just use one. One seems to be plenty, but two is nice, gives it a nice solid feel. And one way you can know that is you can fly with the doors open in this airplane below 60 knots. And that's not one door or the other door, which is common for those that do allow that. They only allow it, or they only prefer it on one. This one you can have them both open, and they'll stay there, and the dual pistons help make sure everything is secure. And 60 knots is so high, it's almost double the stall speed. The stall literally happened in somewhere in the mid-30s, and it was very gentle. So you've got the mid-30s to 60 to fly around, doors wide open if that's the way you like it, which I happen to because I'm an old ultralight pilot. Then up above me here, and of course it's on both sides, you can't see it on that side, a very clear, easily read fuel gauge that there's no question about it. Pilots know to time fuel usage, and that's how you know when you're really getting low on fuel. But you know, there's nothing like, I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see it here easily. This is well marked, both on markings in the tube and on the outside here on the placard that you see, and it shows you fuel in a way that can't possibly go wrong. Another feature like that is the trim knob here, which is a purely mechanical cable to the back. Nothing can fail. As you move it, you're just pulling a cable. It goes to the horizontal tail, and that moves the trim tab on that tail. Not an electrical. Nothing wrong with electric. Electric is nice. It's easy to use, but you know, electric can go south. And then finally behind me, you see the nice little hanger here they put in, and that's on both sides for the headsets for the pilot. You know, as I commented about the reach to the yoke, and the fact that that's fixed by seat cushions and other things, another option for those that want it is they will do this with what I might call a side stick, like in a Cirrus, which means it's over here, but here they put it here. So you can have a single stick if you want instead of the yoke, which would actually free up a little bit of room inside the cockpit. But lots of folks are going to like having a yoke because that's what they learn to fly in their Cessna, Piper, Beechcraft, Diamond, what have you. Yokes are common, and there are those that are actually advocates of yokes. So you can have it kind of both ways on the Sirius. So once the door is closed, and talking about ventilation in the cockpit while flying, you've got these nice side vents, and they're on both sides here, and they can be adjusted to regulate the amount of airflow. But if you'll bring your camera up to the nose here, right in behind the compass there in front of my finger, I'm going to move a wire knob down here, and you'll see that opens and closes those openings a little bit and brings in a lot of airflow right from the front. Now that would also, of course, direct some airflow right over the windscreen, which might be handy in some situations as well. The airplane is quite comfortable inside from an airflow standpoint. However, if I'm going to find another negative about it, it doesn't have, compared to some light sport aircraft, and of course there's many varieties here, but the window size is not quite as large as it is on some others. And for me, and my height, with this cushion that I was sitting on not in position, I have no blockage going out, but when I was up a little bit on this seat cushion that's down here now, I actually had to duck just a little bit to see out to the side clearly. Visibility out the front, quite good. As you see, the windscreen wraps around here, comes back quite a ways toward us, so I've got, even from all the way back in the seat, I've got pretty good upward visibility, and of course leaning forward opens it up almost like a skylight does. There is no skylight in the roof of the cabin here, so that's not available to us, and therefore when banking, you first need to check before you turn that way, because once you turn that way and that high wing comes down and blocks your view, you're not going to be able to see out there. In addition, and I'm sitting on the seat cushion that I used, it fits nicely down in this space here, moved me up a little bit, still gave me plenty of headroom, that's not an issue at all, gave me better visibility over the top. If I took that out, I would have slightly less visibility that way, but I would have slightly more visibility this way, because now look, with me on this seat cushion, and I'm just of average height, when I look to the side, I'm seeing this part of the interior panel. I cannot, right now, without lowering my head, I don't see the wing at all. If I just come down a little bit like that, no big deal, I can see out and have full visibility then. But there are some light sport aircraft that have even wider visibility, and it's not important which ones or whether that's even desirable to you, because some people like the idea of this being solid. I've flown with people in aircraft that have the windows that come down much lower, and for some occupants, generally not pilots, but for those you might take up for a flight, that makes them a little uncomfortable because it looks like the ground's right there. So, you know, it kind of depends. It depends on the individual which way you like it. We're just observing things for you that we like about this airplane, and a few, very few things that we didn't care for quite as much about it. But you know what? That's common. There is no perfect airplane. So this airplane is superbly equipped panel. In fact, as you can see, there's no panel space left on it. We've got over here, we've got the GRT Avionics on the left and right side. They're two different sizes, and I think that's kind of appropriate. You don't need the great big one over here for the occupant, and in fact it gives them room for their circuit breaker panels and so forth down there. But this is the big 10.5-inch HXR GRT Grand Rapids Technology Avionics panel. It was very nice. Quite a different representation than Dynon. We'll show you some images of that. But it had a lot of good information on it, and is a nice execution of it. On the right, I mentioned a smaller version of it. Behind here, we've got the Garmin, and this is one of the new Garmins that remembers all the frequencies, which is, I can't believe it's taken aviation so long to innovate that idea, but it's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Garmin. Also, Garmin's 796 here in the center, an instrument I've come to love because it's so capable. And this great big one over here, well, of course, if you don't know what that is, you haven't been paying attention. That's the Apple iPad. And move the camera here, or move the yoke here a little bit to show it to you better. As you can see, this particular instrument in here is a little large. And in fact, the mini iPad that Apple offers now would just suit this very nicely. And Bill Canino thinks that that would be a good addition, but the owner of this particular airplane, he wanted the big screen. So what the owner wants is what the airplane gets, and therefore this thing is there's no panel space left on it, but there's also no need for anything else. One last thing I'd point out while we're looking up here, two last things. One, very important to me and many pilots, ballistic parachute. Here's the handle behind my hand, and I love the position here because you can get a pull on that thing. When you pull a ballistic parachute handle, you got to pull like there's no tomorrow with all the force you've got on it. And there are some airplanes that put that handle in a less convenient spot to do that maximum pull. This one here, no problem. I'd get both hands on it and I would yank that thing back and I'd have a parachute in short order. The second thing I would point out here is that the labeling up here, I don't know how well you can see that, but you know, ADS on board, they've got a little label for that just to tell you that it's got ADS-B. All the labels and indications of things look like they're very nicely done with nice quality labeling and nicely readable. I imagine that's something that Bill Canino is encouraging the Czech factory to do, but I got to give him points here. There's a lot of good thinking about how the panel's arranged. Finally, back up here on the top, here's those switches we talked about in flight. They're color coded, as you can see behind my finger or in front of my fingernail. And as you start the airplane up, you go this way. As you shut the airplane down, you go that way. It's very logical. And one last little nice feature. There's a couple of little mirrors up here. With these mirrors, I can see both the occupant here very well. If I'm flying with a student, I have learned to watch their eyes, and so with this one, I can watch his eyes very well. With this one, I can see the tailplane, and when I do my control check, I don't have to crane my neck around here, which I could see because there is a window back there, but I can see very nicely just by looking up in this little mirror right here. All in all, the TL3000 Sirius is a fine airplane. It may not be perfect for you because no airplane is perfect, but there is a great deal of positive things to be said about this airplane. Probably as notable as anything for me is its wide speed range. A stall of around 32 to 35, a max speed of right up close to 120. That's pretty much the holy grail of design speed. That is slowest to highest being a 4-time ratio. That's impressive. Congratulations to Bill Canino and SportairUSA and TL-Ultralights. So both these companies I just mentioned, SportairUSA, the American importer of the TL line and other airplanes, and the TL-Ultralight factory, both been in this game for a while. Bill Canino's a designated airworthiness representative, runs an avionics shop, runs an operation in North Little Rock, Arkansas, has been an active participant on the ASTM committees, very involved, very fine gentleman to do business with. The TL-Ultralight people have been in this game for a long time too, and some of the best thing I can say about them is when Bill has asked for things to be changed, they didn't necessarily execute right away because it takes time to plan these things and test certain functions to make sure they're right, but he has said they have been very responsive. And earlier I mentioned that this is not the TL3000 that we flew 3 or 4 years ago. It's much nicer. That's good points for both those companies. I think you can feel good about doing business with them. So that takes us around the TL-Ultralight 3000. Thanks to Bill Canino for letting us have his airplane for quite a while this afternoon at the Midwest LSA Expo. You can get more information. We've given you a lot, but there's plenty more to get. You can find that at Sirius.aero. We'll put that up on the screen for you. Of course, I've gotten to fly these airplanes, and I've reported about this on a number of occasions with news and other videos. You can find out all that on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Thanks a lot for joining us today.